My name is Michael Buffington. I'm a lieutenant with the League City Police Department. I'm assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division as the division commander, and kind of been spearheading the new charge to solve these cold cases that date from the early 80s to the early 90s. The cold cases that we're talking about are commonly referred to as the Calder Road killings.
So the landscape has changed dramatically since the 1980s here. This area here, they were all found within 300 yards of each other is my understanding. And they have crosses here to my background that are kind of symbolic of the women that were found.
The unidentified victims that were found on Calder Road, they're two females. They've been named Jane and Janet Doe. Jane Doe was found in 1986, and Janet Doe was found in 1991. And since that time, they have been unidentified. Approximately 4 years ago, we started a new push to get these girls identified and solve these cases. One of the things that we employed in these cases was a new technology from a company called Prudhomme, and they would take the DNA and create a new facial likeness based off of the genetics, the DNA. We partnered with that company. We got the DNA process from the remains of these victims, and initially they came out with the photo likenesses of them, and then as we were working on that, some new technology came along where they were using genetic genealogy, similar to what was used in the Golden State Killer case. And what we discovered was that we could take that same DNA that we had extracted from the remains, and we could use those in the ancestry and family tree databases, family DNA databases.
My name is Gina Vogel. I'm a detective here at League City, and I am assigned to cold cases. So in this case, you would just find the person that you're looking for, and then by their date of birth, maybe by marriage or family members. And you can just, it brings up their families. So you have their parents, and then their spouse, and then their children. So in this case, I'm still in the 1800s, but I can also bring up the family tree. Now all this information is input by the actual family members, so whatever they put in there is kind of what you get.
What we discovered was the 86 victim was from Tennessee, and that the 91 victim had descendants from Louisiana, southern Louisiana to be more specific. So as we started developing that genetic timeline on them, we were able to find some distant relatives as well.
This is just a depiction of the family tree of our 1991 victim that we used. Basically, we had to work through family trees starting back to the 1800s, and this is ultimately part of the process that we did over the last several months to derive at the victim's identity.
The amount that you're related to somebody when you're doing the genealogy work is measured in what's called centimorgans. And a certain percentage of centimorgan match, let's say 100 centimorgan match, is probably a relative that you had no idea you're even related to. It could be all the way up to a third cousin once removed. So you just have to work the family trees down and find people that were related, make those phone calls, ask for their DNA.
So what we have here is just a little bit of the family tree research that I did for our Jane Doe. And you can tell it's a bit cumbersome. Like I said, this is maybe half of the work I did. So for instance, let's just say we were given the Morris Cook names on the family tree. And from that, and basically it's a Morris that married a Cook. And of course, when you have females, it makes it a little more difficult because their names change throughout history for marriages and all that. And also, it should be noted that back in the 1800s, it was very common for there to be several marriages. Also marrying relatives, sisters, things like that. So that just makes it even more confusing. And then of course you have up to 18 kids in each family. This is where our Jane Doe ends up being on this family tree.
We used other law enforcement tools that we have, databases and search functions, to locate some actual living relatives and make those phone calls to them and ask if they had a relative that had gone missing. On that particular occasion, after we had gotten those results back, we made 3 phone calls. The third phone call, we ended up actually making contact with a cousin of Janet Doe. That cousin said, "I think I know who it is. It's my cousin Donna that went missing Nobody heard from her since the early 90s. She then, in turn, got us in contact with the sister of Janet Doe, and we began to talk with her, and we quickly realized that the similarities that she was telling us had happened in her sister's life. Some of the previous injuries she had sustained, such as broken ribs, fractures in the face, matched our Janet Doe. So we knew at that point that we probably hit a home run there. So we drove to Austin the very next day to collect her DNA. And then a few weeks later, we got confirmation that that was her sister, and her sister's name was Donna Prudhomme. And she lived in the Seabrook area shortly before she went missing in 1991. Jane Doe was the girl out of Tennessee. We ran the Parabon photos about 6 months ago, and I called every news organization in Tennessee that I could find on Google, and I asked them to run our story. A lady actually called in and said, I had a cousin that moved to Texas, and then we never heard from her again. We don't necessarily know that she went missing, but we just never heard from her again, and her name was Audrey Lee Cook. About that same time that tip came in, we were working with this new database with Family Tree, and we ran that DNA through that database, and we got back several cousin matches. We were able to complete the family trees that we had already been working on based on those matches, and the lady that had called in that tip, we were able to find out that she was the cousin of that individual through that DNA match.
We were able to basically solve their identities.
Just getting to the genealogy part was a big step, I thought. So I knew we were close, and I knew just be a matter of time. So it was really nice, especially once I was able to actually make contact with a family member. And there was some relief on their side as well as my side. So it was pretty neat.
Anybody that has a loved one that they haven't heard from or that they're missing, or they need to go this route. They need to put their DNA in one of these databases, because it is a emerging tool that law enforcement's going to use, and you're going to start seeing more and more of these cases across the nation. It's very much a team effort. It takes a lot of manpower. It takes a lot of hours, but it takes dedicated personnel to do that. And I can't say enough for the people that have worked with me on these. It's great to be able to work with people that have such tenacity and drive. I mean, you're talking about a collective group of people that have put in thousands of hours of work into this, and to ultimately be successful and get these girls identified, it's almost undescribable. It's almost undescribable.